Lucy, you got some splaining to do.
In 1969, men walked on the moon, and right now, the Perseverance rover is travelling over the surface of Mars. As humans, we've achieved amazing things, so it seems odd that there are still incidents that happen on our own planet that science cannot explain. Some are natural phenomena, and others are strange occurrences that leave us scratching our heads and wondering what it's all about. Here we'll be taking a look at 5 strange phenomena that are hard to explain. Now before we begin, we'd like to say a huge thank you to this video's sponsor, Displate. As a human species, we are constantly searching for new ways to express ourselves, to explore creativity, imagination, and ingenuity. And what can happen when we master that combination? Most of us live within blank walls, begging for this trifecta to adorn the spaces surrounding us, so that we can tap into the deepest parts of our souls and show others pieces of who we truly are. Of course, with modern technology and the plethora of options we have in a commerce-centric society, it's hard to find the perfect piece of art that not only symbolizes our character, but will also last a lifetime without the fear or wear and tear. Luckily, through Displate, those possibilities are a reality. Displate is a premier producer of unique and unmatched metal posters called Displates, featuring limitless designs, campaign that our planet Earth so desperately needs, for a special and enjoy. Andrew Carlson. Andrew Carlson was 44 years old in 2003 when he was arrested and interrogated by the FBI, and also by the Security and Exchange Commission known as the SEC. At that time, the US stock market had taken a downturn, and most investors were losing money, so the SEC and the FBI were curious as to how Carlson had taken an initial investment of just $800 and over a 2-week period had turned it into a portfolio that was valued at $350 million. All of the trades that Carlson made were through unexpected business development.
I need him to do the stock market for me, bro. Like, I'm wanting to get into the stock market, but to go from $800 to $300 million, that's a lot of money. Fast. Sweet.
In all, there were 126 high-risk trades that the SEC said could not have been made without some sort of insider knowledge. In fact, some of the investments were so secret and high-level that no one should have known about them at all. During his 4-hour videotaped interview, Carlson told his interrogators that he was a time traveler from the year 2256. He said that in the future, the year 2003 was marked as one of the worst years for stock buying, but that someone armed with prior knowledge of what investments would be successful could make a killing. So he had travelled back and had meant to be careful by buying a little bit of stock here and there, and even losing some money at times, but he had just become too excited and got carried away. Although the SEC and the FBI believed that Carlson was a pathological liar, he provided the exact date of the invasions of Iraq, and said that he could give the exact location of Osama bin Laden, as well as provide details of the cure for AIDS. It is not known if he shared any other future events that may still remain as classified information. Carlson insisted on being released from custody so that he could return to his timecraft. He refused to give any details of the machine or its location. He was afraid that the information may fall into the wrong hands. It's strange that there is no record of Carlson before the date of December 2002, Until that time, it appears as though he never existed. Shortly after his arrest, a mysterious person posted his $1 million bail, and although he was due to appear before the courts in April of 2003, he did not show up and has never been seen since. His arrest was reported on several major news channels at the time. Two of the greatest physicists that the world has ever known, Albert Einstein and Stephen Hawking, both agreed that time travel was possible, and that there are rumours that the CERN laboratory in Switzerland, which is home to the Hadron Collider, has opened up some sort of stargate during its black hole experiments. Many people have claimed that the story of Andrew Carlson was just an elaborate hoax, but no retraction of the story has ever been made in the press or in the news. The SEC and the FBI later denied the case ever happened and refused to comment. To this day, there is no clarification as to the existence or whereabouts.
What? What? Okay, for one, okay, time travel exists. But isn't it like the time traveling paradox crap where, like, if, I don't know, time travel is confusing. Did he build the time machine, or was it built by someone else? This is just like one of those vacation destination type deals. Oh, hey, you tired going to Venice or Italy for your vacation? How about go to 2021? It was craptastic. Because I know if you build a time machine for a specific purpose to go back in time, and you change that thing, then there was no legitimate reason for you to go back in time in the first place, so you never built a time machine. Right. I give up.
Of this supposed man. Skyquakes. The sky suddenly becomes black. There is a strange eerie feeling, and then there is an ear-splitting boom that comes without warning. The noise is due to a strange atmospheric event known as a skyquake, for which there is no apparent cause. In 2017, there were 64 reports of these occurrences from all over the world. Some of the thunder-like noises have even caused windows to crack, an earthquake-like movement. One such quake shook parts of Manatee County, Florida in June 2003, and the deafening blast rattled windows of the houses nearby.
So now the
US Air Force and Navy have denied having any aircraft in the skies at the time, so it wasn't a sonic boom. And although the ground shook during the incident, the highly sensitive sensors that record earthquake activity detected nothing strange in June. There were no known weather anomalies either, or any reports of UFO activity in the area. Similar accounts have been recorded as far apart as Glasgow in Scotland and Canberra in Australia. In fact, the phenomena is so common that skyquakes have their own special names, depending on where they are in the world. In Japan, they are umamari, which means the rumbling of the sea. In Italy, they are brontidi, which translates as thunder-like. In the United States, some call the phenomena the Seneca guns. They believe that the sound is made by the ghosts of Native Americans who are firing their guns to annoy the men who drove them from their lands. There are many theories for the spectacularly loud noise, such as the sonic boom of an aircraft breaking the sound barrier. It may be possible that the aircraft are not seen because the military is using a secret cloaking technology, which would make the aircraft invisible, but this cannot explain how the noises have been reported for centuries, long before aircrafts have existed. Another theory is that the loud noise is made by meteorites exploding in the Earth's stratosphere.
What? That's crazy. Skyquakes.
But then there are no bright lights.
Sounds like a really weird movie.
Which could be expected to accompany such an explosion. Other explanations for skyquakes vary from them having human origins caused by electrical power lines, high-pressure gas lines, radiation, or Wi-Fi devices, or being triggered by nature, by natural events such as tidal waves, electromagnetic interference from auroras, or strangely, sand dunes, which under the right circumstances create a variety of noises from low-level whispering, humming, to louder booming sounds. The reason for this sand dune phenomenon is also unknown. Of course, one of the most interesting theories regarding the reason for skyquakes is the connection to UFOs, which I think is well worth a video on Destination Declassified. But skyquakes are not the only unexplained noises that are emitted from our skies. There are recordings of all sorts of strange phenomena, such as vibrations, humming, trumpeting, and even unexplained wailing, many of which we've talked about in previous videos. The question is, where do all these sounds come from?
I didn't know this guy made that many freaking noises. It's like my dad after he eats chili. Just saying.
Don Decker, the Rain Man. Donald Decker lived in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, and was 20 years old in February 1983. His grandfather James had just passed away, and Decker was feeling a great sense of peace, because unbeknownst to anyone else, James had physically abused Decker from the age of just 7 years old. Decker was serving a 12-month sentence at the Monroe Correctional Facility for receiving stolen goods, but was given a week's compassionate leave so that he could stay with his family and attend his grandfather's funeral. He went to stay with a couple named Bob and Jenny Kiefer, who were family friends. At dinner on the night of the funeral, Decker couldn't help going over his past trauma in his head, and on becoming upset, he asked to be excused from the table so that he could calm down and gather his thoughts. But once he was upstairs and alone in the bedroom, Decker became even more emotional as he experienced feelings of rage against his grandfather, and he began to feel strange and unsettled. Then the temperature of the room dropped drastically, and Decker fell into a dreamlike state. It was at this time that he claimed to have seen a vision of his grandfather wearing a crown. Then suddenly, the figure was gone, leaving Decker with 3 deep scratch marks on his arm. Decker returned to his friends at the dinner table, but continued to be in a dazed state. Before he could explain what had happened, a frenzied banging noise began throughout the house, and then water started to drip from the living room ceiling and walls, and a damp mist appeared on the floors. The landlord, Ron Van Wy, was called in, and with his wife he checked the whole house, but could find no explanation for the water leakage. Perplexed and a little scared by the situation, together the Kiefers and the Wys called the police. It was Patrolman Wilbert, who was the first officer to arrive at the house. He walked into the living room and became soaked in water after just a few minutes. Next, Officer Bujan walked in and was amazed to see that the water droplets were travelling horizontally across the room, from one wall to another. The officer couldn't believe what was happening, and they ordered everyone out of the house and told them to wait in the local pizzeria across the street, in the hope that Decker would come out of his trance. As soon as everyone left the house, the water began to dry up. Once inside the pizzeria, the same thing began to happen, and all the walls started to pour with water. The owner of the restaurant noticed that Decker was acting strangely. Believing that he was suffering from some sort of possession, she placed her crucifix on Decker's neck, and he immediately reacted as the crucifix burned his flesh. As the group left the pizzeria, the owner advised them to seek help from the church. Once they had left, the rain stopped falling.
What?
On arrival at the house, the rain began to pour once again.
Bruh, that's some Conjuring Bo. Where's Ed and Lorraine Warren when you need them? Was it like a water demon? I mean, what why is there rain in the house?
But this time pots and pans began to rattle in the kitchen. When Decker was accused by the Kiefers of playing some sort of practical joke, he started to levitate off the ground and was forcibly thrown against the wall by some unseen force. Once his furlough was over and Decker was back in prison, he found that he was able to conjure the rain at will. He was even able to make it rain in the office of Lieutenant Keenhold, who was a warden at the time, causing him to call in the Reverend Blackburn to come and see Decker. After speaking with Decker, the Reverend accused him of making the whole thing up. Immediately, the rain began to fall from the walls of the ceiling, and a strong, death-like odour filled the air. Now believing that he was actually in the presence of evil, the Reverend prayed with Decker for hours. Eventually Decker seemed to be at peace, and the rain stopped. The incident is unusual because there are so many witnesses to the event, and several of them held possessions of trust, including those of police officers and a prison warden. This makes it hard to dismiss what happened as just a hoax. Decker himself believes that he was possessed by the evil spirit of his grandfather, who wanted to carry on abusing his victim even after his death. But until this day, no one can truly explain what happened during that weekend in early 1983.
Okay, that one. Okay, yeah, that's crazy. I don't want to know.
What's your thoughts?
I don't care. I don't want to know. We're going to act like it never happened.
La Bomba. The Shanai Timbishka, also known as La Bomba, is a tributary that flows into the Amazon River in the Peruvian rainforest. It is about 4 miles long. Because it reaches temperatures of up to 100 degrees centigrade, it is known as the only boiling river in the world. The indigenous communities of the Ashaninka believe that the mythological snake, known as the Mother of the Waters, gave birth to the river, whose name actually means boiled by the heat of the sun. Andres Russo was only a small child in Limba when his father first told him about the legend of a lost city of gold somewhere in the Amazon. His grandfather spoke of how the Spanish conquistadors found a terrifying river that boiled men alive as they were trying to catch and kill the last emperor of the Incas. As he grew older, Russo decided to become a geologist, and it was while he was studying for his PhD at Dallas University he remembered the tales. Because he was completing his dissertation on geothermal energy in Peru, he decided to try and find the river. Curiously, the tributary began as a cold stream. It heats up and then cools back down again at night. Very hot springs of water are injected into the river at various points. This also helps raise the temperature. There are also several hot waterfalls along the tributary. One has an impressive 20-foot drop into a large heated water pool. Some parts of the river are so hot that when small mammals, reptiles and amphibians fall in, they are literally boiled alive. Russo reports that as the water is carrying them away, their eyes become a milky white colour. As they are the first things to cook, then their external flesh begins to cook, and as they swallow the water, they are boiled from the inside out. There is no known volcanic activity beneath the river, and there are no geothermal vents, so no one knows why it gets so hot. One theory is that there could be a leakage from a gas or oil source beneath the river. Another states that the water is being heated in the Earth's hot mantle and is then being fed up to the surface through hot springs, but no one really knows for sure. Russo has started the Boiling River Project in order to research and protect La Bomba. The surrounding area along the river is rich with both diverse animal and plant life. It is known as a sacred place to the local people, an area shrouded with spirituality and legend. Healers from the nearby communities go there to commune with the spirits and harness the river's immense power. The area is under threat because of deforestation, so Russo hopes to have La Bomba declared a Peruvian national monument, so that it will only be used for ecotourism, conservation and research.
And
tourists are recommended to visit through the local healing center.
I don't even know where to begin with that. Like, so everything instantly just becomes soup. That's it. That's all soup. It's Soup River. That's what we're going to call it, Soup River from here
We can
on out.
provide detailed safety advice, as visiting the river can pose obvious dangers, including second to third degree burns and death.
You shouldn't go swimming in soup.
Pont Saint-Esprit. On August 16th of 1951, in the small village of Pont Saint-Esprit, in the south of France, a strange and sudden epidemic began. Some of the residents complained of mild symptoms such as heartburn, stomach cramps, and a fever. In other cases, victims had vomiting and diarrhea, a slow pulse rate, and some felt that their digestive system was on fire. Others had intense cramping of the hands, feet, and calves. Symptoms varied widely. Many people had insomnia and were unable to sleep for days.
Dehydration?
Some villagers were running through the streets and screaming that someone was trying to kill them. Some were hurling insults and physically attacking each other. One teenager even attempted to strangle his own mother. Many thought that
There was a drug bust, and someone flushed all the drugs down the toilet, and it contaminated all the drinking water, and now they're all high. Probably not possible, but that's what we're going with.
flowers were growing out of their bodies. One person thought that his head had changed into molten metal, and there were several attempts at suicide, sadly, many of which were successful. A man who thought he was a dragonfly threw himself off a building in an attempt to fly. Luckily he was not killed, although he did break both of his legs. One victim tried to drown himself because he thought that he was being eaten alive by snakes. In all, about 300 men, women and children suffered from the mass hallucination, and 7 people died. 46 people were committed to asylums at the time. Some people were permanently damaged and continued to suffer from some form of psychosis, meaning that they couldn't lead a normal life after the event. But what was the event? The official reason given for the outbreak was due to ergot fungus. Ergot is a mold that grows on rye plants and will affect any products that are made with the contaminated grains. It was alleged that the source of the poisoning originated from flour used to bake bread at the village bakery owned by Rockbrand. Perhaps it is possible that the baker was accidentally or even deliberately responsible for the outbreak. At the time, the French liked their bread to be as white as possible and used substances, namely nitrogen trichloride, to achieve this. So it is possible that Roch had used some chemicals to bleach the flour and accidentally poisoned all of his customers in the process. Although what doesn't make sense is that bleaching of flour in France was quite prevalent in the 1950s, and the problems in Pont Saint-Esprit had not occurred anywhere else. There have been other theories. Perhaps it could have been an intentional poisoning of the water supply, although not enough people were really affected for this to be true. Mercury poisoning could be responsible. One particular seed treatment that was used on crops at the time contained high levels of mercury. But again, poisoning symptoms from it did not include hallucinations. The official finding of ergot poisoning was based on evidence provided by scientists who were sent to investigate from the Sandoz chemical company in Switzerland. Among those scientists who visited Pont Saint-Esprit was a man named Dr. Albert Hoffman, who had coincidentally created the drug LSD in 1938. When the research group visited the village, Sandoz Chemicals was secretly working with the CIA. During the 1950s, the CIA were working on various projects, including MKUltra, and conducted secret experiments using the drug LSD. In 2009, journalist Hank Albarelli claimed to have evidence that the CIA had sprayed LSD over the village of Pont Saint-Esprit as an experiment. But LSD breaks down quite quickly in the sunlight and has to be ingested rather than absorbed through the skin, so this theory also seems unlikely. Although many scientists have studied the outbreak, the cause of the plague of madness.
My theory, I'm telling you, they flushed drugs down the toilet, got into the water, and now everyone's all fuckered up. Excuse my language.
That descended on the little village of Pont Saint-Esprit in 1951 remains a mystery to this day. And so that concludes 5 strange phenomena that are hard to explain. What do you think are the reasons for these occurrences?
Some of them are I don't even want to try to explain. I don't even want to know the explanation, honestly. Just saying. It all sounds shady. Very, very shady. I mean, the boiling river, no, I'm sorry, soup river, That's weird enough. But everyone on one big acid trip at one time? That's just weird. Just saying. That's weird. Group acid trip. Did you know little Jimmy down the road was missing? Alright, we're going to move on to some Life of Luxury. This is called We Found Her Under the Bed. Why is she under the bed?
I'm really nervous about this. We've dealt with plenty of stuff like this before. You can talk to us.
When I'm going to sleep, I see them.
Dude, she doesn't want to tell us what's going on. She's probably just freaked out right now. Hello, Lux Army. Before this video starts, let's try to beat our record for the most likes and smash 100,000. So for this episode, we received an email from a girl named Bella. Bella thinks that she's been seeing a girl who looks like her in her house at night. She says that before she goes to sleep at night, she sometimes sees almost like a reflection of herself walking around. Now personally for me, this didn't make any sense until she sent us this video. So today we're going to drive out to Bella's house and stay there for tonight to try to figure out what's going on. Bro, I'm going to be honest, I'm really nervous about this. What's making you nervous? Or we've just never had a case like this before. I mean, right now I have no idea what we can expect, but we've dealt with plenty of stuff like this before. Yeah, we've just never done anything like this.
Yeah, I love Chester's enthusiasm.
Alright, I think this is a place. You think you're gonna be able to do this? I guess I don't have a choice. Alright, let's go in and talk to her. Alright. Okay, let's knock on this door.
Guess I just don't got a choice.
Dude, why isn't she answering the door? You talked to her, right? Yeah, I talked to her this morning. I thought she knew we were coming tonight. Hey, Bella, how's it going? Bella? We're here to make the video.
What?
We're here to make the video. Can we come in and get started? Okay. Okay, Bella, thank you for letting us in. Can you tell us a little bit more about your situation? So you said you've been seeing a second version of yourself?
Yes, this is true.
Okay. Listen, I know it's a little bit awkward having these cameras in your house and stuff, but you need to talk to us so we can figure out, you know, what's going on with you. I mean, can you please at least look at me?
I've been seeing a second version of myself.
Do you see this person at night?
Yes, when I'm going to sleep, I see them.
What kind of things does this person do?
Normal things.
And you live completely alone? So if you've never seen this person very clearly, why do you think this person looks like you?
What?
Listen, Bella, I know this is pretty weird and stuff, but you can talk to us and tell us what's going on.
I'm just not in the mood to talk about it.
Okay, so if you just want to show us where we'll be sleeping, we'll set up some cameras tonight to try to find out what's going on. Can you show us where we'll be staying?
Okay.
Okay. Is there a room?
Here.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Dude, she doesn't want to tell us what's going on.
Bro, she's probably just freaked out right now.
I'm just really uncomfortable being here.
Alright, dude, just relax, alright? Let's go set up some cameras, and then let's go to sleep, alright?
Alright, fine. Let's go.
One in Bella's room. Hey, Bella, do you mind if we put a camera in your room?
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Alright, so we have the camera set up.
What
It's
if
pretty late.
she's-
I'm ready to go to sleep.
Dude, look at this camera in her room. She's just sitting there.
What if she's the doppelganger? I mean, just saying. She seems awfully, I don't want to say weird, but she weird, bro.
She'll probably go to sleep soon. It's not a big deal. Let's just go to sleep, alright?
Alright, fine, whatever.
Bless me.
Stop it.
Hello?
Hey guys. Sorry to call so late. Were you guys sleeping?
What? Yeah, we were sleeping. Why are you calling?
I'm just calling to let you know that I'll be back Friday so then we can film then.
What are you talking about?
So we can film the investigation.
What's she talking about?
We were
Why are
gonna
you
film
Why are
the
you
video.
calling? Why didn't you just come in?
I told you I'm gonna be back on Friday so then we can film.
What are you talking about? We're in your house now.
What?
What are you saying?
How'd you get in there?
You let us in. What are you talking about?
That's not me. That's not me. You guys have to get out of there right now. It's
What?
not me.
What the hell is going on?
Not me.
That's not her?
Bro, let's go. We need to get out, bro. Get your stuff. Get your stuff. Come on.
Okay. No! What are you doing in this house?
Listen, we're just trying to leave, alright? What's wrong with you?
What's wrong with your skin?
Bro, let's get the hell out of here.
Let's go! Let's go! Let's go!
I am.
Oh my god, what was it?
Bro, I have no idea, bro.
Do we call the police?
Dude, I can't believe we were staying there. Who knows what happened when we were asleep?
Dude, just try.
Oh, God. I was right, though.
Hey guys, thank you for watching.
Oh, God. Yeah, you gotta love life of luxury. Alright. As usual, we are ending with a MrBallen. This is the most effed up interrogation ever caught on tape. Mature audiences only. So, ladies and gentlemen, a little disclaimer. If he says mature audiences only, put your kids to bed. Forewarning.
At the end of today's story, a lot of you are going to be shaking your head, wondering how in the world could they have missed that. But before we get into today's
Alright. So, from what I know about MrBallen, if he does give fair warning that mature audiences only, it's going to be messed up. So, this may contain some graphic, descriptive crap that you don't want your kids to hear. So, kids, go away.
2006, Heather Kwan was a 21-year-old college student living in the small residential town of Desert Hills in Arizona. From a very young age, Heather was someone who always seemed to give her friendship to the people who needed it the most, people who were hurting on the inside or who society had kind of forgotten about. This is why when she was a teenager and a young adult, she would often spend her weekends volunteering her time with underprivileged children. It's also why she aspired to go to law school and become a defense lawyer, because she loved the idea of professionally helping people that desperately needed her help. She lived in a rental home with her boyfriend, who was 18 years old. His name was Ryan Waller, and amongst other things, he was a huge gun enthusiast and a student. That year, the couple had made plans to visit Ryan's father, Don, on Christmas Day, so on December 25th. But when the day came and Don had made dinner for the couple and was expecting them, they didn't show up. And so Don tried contacting both of them, but when he couldn't, he just had a bad feeling that something was off. It was just very uncharacteristic of them to just no-show. But instead of driving over to their property himself, Don just called the local police and asked them to do a welfare check. The police arrived at the house in Desert Hills, Arizona. They knocked on the door, but there was no answer. They looked in the windows and some lights were on, but it was mostly dark inside, and they couldn't really tell from the car in the driveway if that belonged to the homeowners or somebody else. And so they stood there for a second, they're looking in the windows, there's no movement. They knock again while simultaneously calling out that, hey, we're the police, we're here to do a welfare check, just want to make sure you guys are okay. And this time, after they were done knocking, they heard the deadbolt unlock and then the door swung inward into the house, and standing right in front of them was Ryan. Ryan had this huge bruise on his left eye, this big black eye, and he had a cut on his nose, and he was just standing there, not saying anything, not asking any questions, just looking at them. And they looked past Ryan into his house, and they saw there was a woman lying on the couch, which they presumed was his girlfriend Heather, because that was the two people they were coming to look for. And so they turned their attention back to Ryan, and they asked him, what happened to your eye? And Ryan was a little bit cagey. He didn't really give them a straight answer. He basically said, I don't know. I don't know what happened to my eye. And, the police didn't really pry that much, but eventually they determined that Ryan was more or less okay, albeit a little bit strange. And then they said, okay, well, who's the woman who's lying on the couch? Is that Heather? And Ryan, again, was kind of cagey and a little bit dismissive and said something along the lines of, she's just sleeping. And so the police said to him, look, we're here on a welfare check. Your father sent us here to check on you guys. And so we have to go in there and wake her up and make sure she's okay. And so Ryan, again, was just a little bit weird and kind of defensive and didn't really immediately
I'd put him in handcuffs, throw him up against the wall. I don't trust him. Don't be cagey.
comply, but eventually did step out of the way, and the police walked into the residence. They walked over to the couch, and as soon as they looked down at the girl on the couch, which was Heather, they saw right away that she was not asleep. She was dead, and she had been for at least a couple of days. She had died from a single gunshot wound to the head. Immediately, Ryan was arrested and brought out to a squad car.
Told you they should have put him in handcuffs right off the bat. He was shady. Freaking shady.
He didn't fight the arrest, but he did emphatically say he didn't know what was going on, he didn't understand what was happening, he didn't know what happened to Heather, he just seemed kind of generally confused. But regardless, he was thrown in the back of the police car outside the property, and he would sit there for several hours while more and more police and paramedics arrived to process the crime scene and also to transfer Heather's body to a morgue. Finally, around 5 a.m. on December 26th, the police brought Ryan, who was still in the back of this police car, to the Phoenix police station for questioning. The interrogation that followed, this hour-long interrogation that was all filmed, would start off relatively normally, but it would quickly devolve into this totally bizarre back and forth between Ryan and the detective who was questioning him. And then at the end of the interrogation, there would be this stunning revelation. From this point until the end of today's video, we're going to be showing you clips from the actual interrogation. When you get to the end of this video and you hear the revelation, and trust me, you will not miss it, I would encourage you to then go back and watch the clips of the interrogation, or just go online and watch the entire interrogation, because it's totally mind-blowing watching this thing, knowing what's really going on. In the video, Ryan is led into...
Oh God, some M. Night Shyamalan. No. Hey, what he does is this. These ones get me. These ones get me. I ain't gonna lie. Like, it's like the whole time. Curse you, Mr. Ballen.
This sort of nondescript, small interrogation room at 5:08 a.m. on December 26th. So he's just arrived at the station, they put him in this room, he's wearing this white jumpsuit that might have been issued by police, maybe he owned it, but it definitely looks more like prison attire. He's got no shoes on, no socks on, and his hands are not cuffed. And so he walks into the room and he sits down in the chair that's in the back corner of the interrogation room, and this chair is right next to this table, and then on the other side of this table is another chair.
Good God, that is a massive black eye. You're going to know how you got that. There's no way not to know how you got that. What? I don't know. You know, bro. Don't feed me that.
And so Ryan sits down in the corner. He's kind of facing out towards the middle of the room. He's quiet. He's basically not moving. And then at some point, he notices there is a handcuff that's connected to this table. Now, in some cases, the police would handcuff the person they were interviewing in this room. But in this case, Ryan was not told that he needed to put this handcuff on. He was uncuffed. So there was no directive that he needed to have this handcuff on. After handcuffing himself to this table, Ryan turns and puts his arms over this table and he lays down, puts his head in his arms, and he lays that way for about 5 minutes. Periodically, he makes a few groaning sounds, but for the most part, he's quiet. And then all of a sudden, as he's laying there, he suddenly makes a fairly loud moaning sound and he stands up in his chair like he's going to walk out of the room, but as soon as he starts to walk away, the handcuff stops him. The handcuff that he was not told to put on. And so he's stuck against this table, but he doesn't seem fazed by it. He looks almost confused by what's happening, but he doesn't dwell on it for very long. Instead, he just reaches across the table and grabs a blank piece of paper, and then he just sits back down in the seat, he crosses his legs, and he starts looking at this piece of paper. At 5:17 a.m., so roughly 9 minutes into this interrogation, which really hasn't even started yet, Ryan is intently looking at this.
What is he on? He be on something, bro. Tell him, he'd be on
blank
something.
Piece of paper when a detective walks into the interrogation room. This detective was named Dalton, and he informs Ryan that they're going to be taking pictures of his feet, and so he needs to put his feet up on the table that's right next to him. Ryan at first acts very confused and doesn't really understand what's happening, but he eventually complies and he puts his feet up on the table, and by the time his feet are up there, another officer walks into the interrogation room, and he's got a camera and he's got this big kit with him, and he would begin about a 10-minute long process of photographing Ryan's feet and also swabbing Ryan's feet. During this 10-minute session, Dalton stays in the room, and so Ryan periodically asks him if he can just leave and go home, seemingly unaware of how serious this situation really was for him. And when Dalton would tell him, "No, you can't leave," Ryan would act totally frustrated and kind of angry and upset, kind of like how a child would act if they were told they couldn't have something they really wanted to. At 5:28 a.m., after this 10-minute session is complete and they've photographed and swabbed Ryan's feet, the second officer leaves the room and Dalton shuts the door behind him, and then he walks over to the table and he grabs the chair on the other side from Ryan. He drags it out so it's closer to Ryan, and then he sits down and introduces himself. After that, he begins asking Ryan some very basic questions. He asks him to confirm his name, which he does. He asks him to confirm his date of birth and his social security number, and Ryan does both those things. And then he asks Ryan if he understands why he was there, why he was being interrogated. And Ryan says no. And so at this point, Dalton says, "Okay, let's just stop right now. I'm going to read you your rights." And so it's
now it's getting serious, bro. The rights are being read. Oh no.
This point in the interrogation that Ryan's behavior starts to get really, really weird. After Dalton tells Ryan it's
already weird. How much weirder can it get?
Needs to read him his rights, you can see Ryan doesn't compute what he's saying. He's just kind of looking blankly, and Dalton seems to pick up on that, and so he tries to make it kind of lighthearted, and he says, hey Ryan, I'm gonna read you your rights like they do on TV, like on Cops and on Law and Order and CSI, any of those crime shows, they read people their rights. That's what I'm gonna do. You know what I'm talking about? And Ryan just goes, no. And Dalton's kind of confused. He's like, you haven't seen any cop show where they read people their rights? And at this, Ryan kind of changes his behavior, and suddenly he's not as robotic, he's a little bit defensive looking, and he says, oh, yeah, I have, yeah. At this, it's pretty obvious to Dalton that Ryan is lying about something that is totally insignificant, whether or not he's seen true crime TV shows. It really just didn't matter at all. And there's this weird hesitation where both of them are just kind of being quiet for a minute.
Everyone has watched Law and Order or Special Victims Unit or CSI Miami. Cops, bad boys. Everyone.
It's like Dalton knows he's lying about it, and Ryan just seems totally confused. And then ultimately, Dalton just decides to not key in on this kind of weird lie that Ryan has just told. Instead, he just reads Ryan his rights. And then after that, he gets back into some basic questions. The next one was, hey Ryan, what was the highest grade you achieved in school? And now at this point, Ryan is not looking at Dalton. He's looking to the far side of the room. He's got this blank expression on. And when he's asked this question, he just says, I don't know. And Dalton's like, you don't know what level grade you achieved in school? And Ryan says, no, I don't know. Eighth grade. So again, he's changed his answer fairly abruptly when he's challenged. And so Dalton is probably thinking to himself that he's lying again. But again, it's just kind of an insignificant thing, but it's building a pattern of mistrust here. It's hard for Dalton to believe that Ryan is going to be truthful if he can't even tell the truth about things that don't matter. But Dalton decides not to fixate on it. Instead, he asks a follow-up question based on the fact that Ryan has said 8th grade is the highest level he achieved. And so Dalton says, okay, well, did you get your GED? A GED is a high school diploma equivalent, and it's something you would get if you did not graduate high school. And since 8th grade is below high school, then Ryan clearly did not finish high school, and so it's a natural question to ask. The answer to this question is binary. You have a GED, you don't have a GED. But Ryan's answer is anything but binary. It's totally contradictory and weird, and it really begins to show a side of Ryan that just doesn't add up. He's acting totally weird.
Do you have a GED?
I don't know.
You don't know what?
I don't know. I just want to go home.
Oh, you're not going to go home right now.
So what?
What's the highest grade that you completed?
B?
No, not grade, as in letter grade. I'm asking, did you graduate high school?
No.
And the highest you went was 8th grade?
Yeah.
Do you know how to read and write, Ryan?
Yeah.
After the discussion about Ryan's education goes nowhere, Dalton again does not fix.
Oh God, Ryan. What are you on, dude? Oh.
On all the issues with his answers so far, and instead just kind of continues asking more questions. And so he begins to address Heather. He starts by asking Ryan if he has a girlfriend. Now, Dalton at this point would know that Heather, the girl who was deceased, was Ryan's girlfriend, because the police were asked to do the initial welfare check on Ryan and Heather, the couple. That's something that Dawn would have relayed to police. And so Dalton knows they have a relationship, but he wants Ryan to tell him he has a relationship with Heather. So again, he asks Ryan, do you have a girlfriend? And Ryan says, no. which is a lie. But Dalton goes along with it and says, okay, well, do you know a girl named Heather? And Ryan would say, yes, I do. But his description of Heather was just completely inaccurate. He said Heather was a 16 or 17-year-old girl, even though she was actually 21. And he would say her last name was Kyman. He thought. He wasn't entirely sure. He said she has nicknames and she has different names she uses, but he believes it's Kyman, even though her last name was actually Kwan. Now, Dalton, of course, is aware of these discrepancies, but again, he does not fixate on them. He just keeps on asking more questions. Dalton asks Ryan, what happened to your face? You have this huge bruise on the left side of your face. You know, what happened? At first, Ryan says he doesn't know. But when Dalton pressed him and kept asking more and more questions about his face and how it happened, Ryan eventually would begin to open up.
What happened to your face?
I don't know.
You told the officer just a few minutes ago that someone hit you. Do you remember who hit you?
I don't know. I think it was Heather.
Why would Heather hit you?
She hit you with a brick?
It was an accident. I forgot why.
Like the other police officers involved, Dalton believed already going into this interrogation that Ryan killed Heather, that the bruise on his face was from Heather fighting back before ultimately Ryan killed her. And so for Ryan to say the mark on my face is from Heather, even though he claimed it was an accident, to Dalton, that was the same thing as Ryan saying, I killed Heather. Dalton attempted to get more specific details about the actual physical struggle that took place between Ryan and Heather, but as he asked more and more questions, he became more and more aggressive, and it seemed like Ryan picked up on it and became very defensive and started throwing out random pieces of information, much of which seemed untrue. Like he suggested there was at least 2 or 3 other people that were in the house on the night that Heather got killed, but it's unclear if these people were real or if they were actually ever there. And it just seemed like Ryan was kind of panicking and just kind of saying all sorts of random things. And so at some point, Dalton just wants to focus the conversation because he feels like it's getting totally out of hand. And so he just stops Ryan and he says, Ryan, there is a dead girl in your house and I need information.
Hey, Ryan?
Huh? Huh?
There's a dead girl in your living room.
She's dead?
Yes.
Heather?
I don't know. I want to know what happened in your house last night.
The girl on the couch is dead?
I don't know. If she's on the couch, she's dead.
The interesting thing about Ryan's reaction to being told by Dalton for the first time in the interrogation that there was a dead girl in his house is Ryan reacted with genuine surprise. It's the only time in the entire interrogation start to finish where Ryan sits forward in his chair, he kind of perks up, and he seems relatively normal. He's not acting confused and kind of bizarre. It's like he's really dialed in, as if he had not heard this before, that he didn't know Heather was dead, and he's now for the first time being told, and it shocked his system. But just seconds after he sits forward and seems really engaged, he goes back to kind of being totally bizarre, and he also suddenly had this really elaborate story about what happened to Heather, even though just seconds ago it seemed like he had just learned about it. So it didn't really make any sense that he would have a story so readily available for something he seemed to not know anything about. And of course, like all of his other answers, his story he gave was full of contradictions and holes and was just totally unbelievable.
Well, these people came over, Richie and his dad, with shoot and arrow, bow and darts. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
They hit me and her with those. That's it.
They hit you and... They hit you?
Yeah.
Now it's Richie that hit you, not Heather?
No, Richie and his dad.
Richie and his dad. They hit you.
Yes.
Why?
Because they're trying to get their stuff. I don't know why.
And they had some kind of bow and arrows?
Mm-hmm. They each had 2 revolvers and they didn't let off any shells.
Okay, you just said they had bow and arrows. Now they have revolvers?
That's what I meant. They had revolvers.
They have revolvers?
Yes.
And then what happened?
And then they shot us with those.
Following this exchange, Ryan would change his story again and would say, actually, they didn't shoot me, they just shot Heather, they put me in a sleeper hold. But when Dalton asked him, what do you mean sleeper hold? Ryan said, oh, I don't know what a sleeper hold is. And then eventually Ryan would actually just ditch the sleeper hold narrative and go back to the Richie and his father. They came in and they shot both of us. At this point, Ryan's story has become so convoluted and it's changed so many times that it's just totally...
Maybe he's got a brain injury from being hit in the eye. You know how, like, when you're little, your parents look at you and say, I'm going to knock some sense into you? Maybe they knocked the sense out of him. Maybe at one time he used to be smart boy. Now he dumb boy. If I was this detective, I would put in for early retirement after I was done with this.
Unbelievable. And so Dalton, who was doing his best to kind of go along with Ryan's story, at this point just can't even pretend anymore. He cannot pretend that he's following the story. It doesn't make any sense.
You're telling me you're all over the board here, number one. You're saying bows and arrows, you're saying revolvers, and you're saying some other thing, and you're saying they shot you in the eye. Okay? They shot you with a revolver in your eye.
Yes. And that's
Is it a BB gun?
No, it was a real gun, man. It was just a revolver.
If they shot you in the eye with a revolver, you wouldn't be talking to me right now.
How do you know?
Oh, God. I know this is not something to laugh about because there's a poor girl dead. You telling me they shot you in the eye with a revolver? Yes, you wouldn't be talking. How do you know? God. I can't do it. I can't do it no more. Oh, this, oh, God. Oh, number of tears. Oh, jeez. Okay.
It's most likely you be dead.
That's what I thought too, man. I really don't know.
So you got shot first?
Uh-huh.
And what happened? Did you fall to the ground?
Yeah, I was trying to get up and I couldn't. I don't know.
And then she got shot?
Mm-hmm.
What did you do?
Nothing.
Did you call 911?
Uh-uh.
Did you see if she was alive?
She was sleeping still, and that's it. I just let her sleep.
She got shot in the side of the face, and you let her sleep?
Yeah.
He's getting so angry. Oh, God. I can't do this. This is such a serious situation. I just can't stop laughing. Oh, God. Okay. Serious face. She got shot in the face. You just let her sleep? Okay. Okay. Okay.
This does not make sense, Ryan.
After this exchange, Dalton just goes full bad cop on Ryan, openly accusing him of shooting and killing Heather, and Ryan just continues to say he doesn't know anything, that he didn't do it, and his answers are just totally nonsensical and contradictory, and nothing is making sense. And so finally, at 5:52 a.m., roughly 45 minutes into this interrogation, Dalton is just at a loss. He does not know how to handle Ryan, because even though he really believes he did it, nothing Ryan has said has incriminated him, because nothing Ryan has said makes any sense. And so he's sitting there kind of thinking what he's going to do next, and then Dalton notices something. He notices something on Ryan's face. He tells Ryan to come closer, he needs to look at it.
Let me see your nose. Put your legs down. Put your legs down. Bring your face closer.
Oh, my head hurts.
Okay. Yeah, be right back.
Did he really get shot in the face?
Finally just discovered were 4 bullet holes in Ryan's face and head. Ryan had committed no crime. He was a victim the same way Heather was a victim, but somehow Ryan had survived the attack. On December 23rd, so 2 days before the welfare check, 2 men attempted to break into Ryan and Heather's house. They were 23-year-old Richie Carver and his 54-year-old father, Larry Carver, the same Richie and Richie's father that Ryan had mentioned during the interrogation. They were there because of an altercation that had occurred between Richie and the couple about a month earlier.
He got shot in the face! Crazy wasn't lying! What? And they just now notice he has holes in his face? No wonder the boy ain't right.
During that time, Richie was actually living with Ryan and Heather, but apparently he began hitting on Heather, and Heather told Ryan, and Ryan got really mad about it, and Ryan and Richie got in this big fight, and ultimately Ryan kicks Richie out of the house. Now, this totally infuriates Richie and is very embarrassing for Richie, and so right away, he begins plotting his revenge. And so on December 23rd, Richie and his father, they were there to carry out this revenge plot. When the father and son got to the back of Ryan and Heather's house, Ryan saw them at the back door through the glass door that was near their kitchen, and he ran over to try to stop them from getting inside, but Richie and Larry managed to barely get open the door, and Richie reached in with his hand, which was carrying a gun, and he shot Ryan point blank twice in the face. The first bullet went in through his nose and then out the other side of his nose, so that's the first 2 bullet holes. And then that bullet traveled back into his head through his left eye into his brain where it got lodged. And along with the bullet, 6 pieces of his skull that broke off from this bullet went inside of his brain as well. So that's the first 3 bullet holes. And then the second bullet that was fired into Ryan's head hit the side of his head. It did not penetrate into his skull. So the bullet didn't lodge anywhere inside of his brain. However, it did break off a piece of his skull. And so that was the 4th bullet hole. Ryan dropped to the ground. He was unconscious. They assumed he was dead. They managed to force the door the rest of the way open. They stepped inside. They stepped over Ryan's body, and they walked into the living room where Heather was cowering on the sofa, and Richie just immediately walked up, put a gun to her head, and fired a single shot. After she had fallen to the ground, the 2 men stole some things.
I died. What? What are you telling me, MrBallen? I can't handle stories like this. Why do you do this to me?
In the house and then fled the scene. They would ultimately get caught, and they're both currently serving life sentences. It's believed Heather died instantly from her gunshot wound, but Ryan didn't. At some point, maybe a couple of hours after he was shot, he woke up, but he had severe brain damage and he wouldn't have known what was going on. He didn't really know what happened, and he saw his girlfriend Heather lying on the couch, but he thought she was just sleeping, and so he too went to his bedroom and he fell asleep. But the next morning, he woke up and he still would have had no idea what was going on, and he spent the day on the 24th just kind of wandering around his house with his girlfriend lying dead on the couch. And so after a full day of just kind of mindlessly walking around his house, he went back to bed, and then he got up on Christmas Day on the 25th and spent another day just kind of walking about his house with his girlfriend, who he believed was sleeping, but really she was dead. And so finally the welfare check is called in, the police show up, and as soon as they see Ryan, they jumped to conclusions that he must have killed Heather, and it kind of dictated the way they treated him. Had they believed he was a victim, they might have sought medical attention for the wound on his face, but again, jumping to conclusions and assuming he was the killer, they figured that bruise on his face was from the woman fighting back. She had struck him before he had savagely killed her. And so they didn't give him any medical care. Instead, they put him out in the cop car out front of the property, and he sat there with no medical intervention for 6 hours. And during those 6 hours, literally every second that went by, there was irreversible brain damage being caused because he had all this bleeding inside of his head that was causing brain damage. And so the clock was ticking as soon as they found him, and for hours and hours and hours, he got no care and was just getting worse and worse and worse. And so finally he goes to the police station, and again, they do not give him any medical care. Instead, they interrogate him for almost 2 hours, even though he has 4 bullet holes on his face that apparently no one noticed or no one took seriously. But regardless, he spent those almost 2 more hours in the interrogation room, where every second that's going by, his brain is getting more and more destroyed, irreparably destroyed. And then finally, at the end of the interrogation, Dalton, who's probably thinking to himself, what is wrong with this guy? His answers don't make any sense. He's all over the place. And that's when he stepped back from looking for a way to convict this guy and noticed the holes on his face, specifically the hole in his nose. And that's when he called him forward, and he looked at his face and he realized a huge mistake had been made, and he called an ambulance. Here is a clip of the fire department who arrived ahead of the ambulance in the interrogation room, learning about what's happened to Ryan as they wait for the ambulance.
Hey guys. Hey guys. Captain, you're not going to believe this one.
I can't believe it either.
You're right. I've already heard the story. I can't believe it. This is just my observations that this might be an entrance, this might be an exit, this might be into his eye. And he's acting like he has a serious head injury, which would make sense.
Ryan was ultimately rushed to the hospital, where he would undergo emergency surgery that would save his life, but it would come at a great cost. They not only had to remove a large portion of his brain, but they also had to remove both of his eyes. Now, it should be noted that at least one other source says he only had his left eye removed, but regardless, after this surgery, Ryan was no longer independent. He had so much brain damage, he couldn't take care of himself, and so he had to move back in with his parents, who became his full-time caretakers. And then 10 years later, Ryan would die from a seizure that was directly connected to the injuries he sustained from that attack, and it's connected to the lack of care he received in those first critical 8 hours.
Bro, I would be suing everyone. What the? Oh my God. I feel so bad for laughing. I'm going to hell. I'm going to hell, y'all. I'm sorry. Some of you probably are too, because y'all probably laughed. I'm just saying. We're all going to hell. Oh my God. He was shot in the face. He wasn't just full of crap. I thought he was full of crap. You thought we all thought he was full of crap, bro. I'm sorry. I'm going to hell. Oh God. Oh God. MrBallen. Why do you do this to me?
After the police found him. The Phoenix Police Department, after this mishandling of Ryan's case went public, they did an internal investigation, but no one was ever disciplined, at least not publicly. As for Ryan's family, they certainly could have filed a lawsuit against the Phoenix Police Department, but they chose not to. They said the only thing we want is our son back, and a lawsuit will not give us that. So that's gonna do it, guys. If you got some...
Oh my God, I'd suit everyone, just to prove a point. I would suit everyone. Oh my God. I'm going to hell. There's a special place for me now. Oh, sweet baby Jesus. Okay. I'm done. I'm out. It's over. We're done. Nope. I ain't doing it. Oh, God. All right. So, yeah, this was not getting monetized. At all. That's so messed up. Alright, so I'm out, y'all. I can't do it. I just can't. So if you're a fan of the Scary, Spooky, Strange, or Deranged, think about subscribing. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up, because those really tend to help. As always, be good to one another. I'll see you in the next one. Stay spooky.